On Christmas Day, I was working on a different project, and suddenly I saw this tweet by Simon Willison on the fact that he had created this really nice, readable HTML version of his Claude Code Sessions, right? So it sort of extracts the detailed transcripts from Claude Code and turns it into an HTML viewable file. And it seemed like a really interesting project to follow and sort of a really interesting project to look at. So, I went over and downloaded the project and played around with it. I've been using Claude Code quite a lot over the last 3 to 6 months. So it was really good to look through, my transcripts. Here's a great example of a transcript of a longer session. So you can see it has this beautiful index file. It sort of talks, shows you every single sort of prompt that you've given. What it does a very good job of is, showing the thinking, showing what's actually happening on the command line, what's happening on the terminal windows, uh, showing sort of what is the code that is running. Uh, and I think overall it's a fairly helpful project. It's good to look through your Claude Code transcripts and see essentially what's happening. It had one feature that was missing, according to me. After downloading it, I sort of opened it up in anti-gravity, and what I created was a dark mode because I left everything in dark mode. And so this project now is Claude Code Transcript is available in dark mode, and you can surf the entire thing. I thought anti-gravity did a good job of being a tool. I usually use Cursor, but I've been playing around with anti-gravity, so this was a simple enough thing to pull off. Just HTML, CSS changes in light mode and dark mode. So that's been fun to play around with it. But then I wanted to go deeper. As I started looking at the Claude Code transcripts, I realized that there's a lot of stuff that I've spoken to Claude about, which I wish I didn't have to keep repeating myself. There were standard patterns with which I, communicated with it. There were things that I asked it to think about. I would always insist on more documentation. I would insist on first telling me the answer to a question, going deeper into any sort of problem that it had to solve. So I realized now that I have access to all these Claude transcripts, which I always had access to, but now because this project really made me think about all the transcripts, I thought, wouldn't it be fascinating if we sort of build out a pattern knowledge bank? So we look through these common patterns through all the chats that we have had with Claude and extract those patterns out into a markdown file. And then we could potentially take that. And this is the second thing that I worked on. So Claude Pattern Knowledge Bank is the agent that I ran on, is the session that I ran on anti-gravity. And we essentially said, hey, what would be a technical approach of parsing this and extracting all this valuable information out of all these sessions? And you could, if you use Claude Code regularly, you'd sort of, end up having hundreds of sessions locally and maybe sessions on the web. So extracting this out of that. And I focused on local sessions, specifically on my machine, because I run a lot of those sessions. And then, of course, we used Claude API to, for pattern extraction, right, and incremental updates and privacy design. So very well thought through overall project. Made it part of the Claude Code transcripts bit. Made sure that sort of it ran within the confines of the original project that Simon had worked on. And if you can see here, this actually does a very good job of extracting things out. So user prefers thorough project analysis before making changes, requesting understanding of structure and purpose first. And this is green. It's labeled green because this is something that I talk to a lot. It's clearly referenced in multiple of my projects, and you can see the verbatims that it has pulled from all the various transcripts. User consistently requests comprehensive document organization, which is something else that I look at. Now, the interesting things about finding these patterns is that you can then copy paste these into your Claude.md file, or create sort of a style.markdown file, which is what I use in Cursor. And this allows you to figure out what are the common patterns. How do you think about architecture, and how do you think about testing and documentation and your workflow, and then add these things to a markdown file, which you can by default give it as a context to Claude Code, Cursor, even anti-gravity. any of these things. And it's good to see your own patterns over hundreds of different sessions and sort of figuring this out. So this has been a fun project overall to work on. And what I've done now is that I've made this project available on GitHub, Claude Code Transcripts Extended. You can, all thanks, of course, to Simon, and that's his original project. What it talks about is the new things that I've added, which is the dark mode, which I think is just a small, cool extension to the project because I love seeing things in dark mode. And then, of course, it talks about the pattern matching feature that we've sort of pattern extraction that we've done here. So extract your coding patterns and preferences from your Claude Code session and how you can go about doing it. Of course, all of this runs from the command line. So fairly simple for people who are already used to running Claude Code and who are used to command line interfaces. So hope you try it out. Thanks.